Up next, a discussion on compensation for college athletes with former University of Alabama head football coach Nick Saban and Southwestern Athletic Conference Commissioner Charles McClelland. Coach Saban voices support for revenue sharing, ensuring fair pay for student athletes. This is part of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's 53rd Annual Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C.
I'm Congresswoman Terri Sewell. First of all, good afternoon. Y'all can say it better. This is going to be a fabulous panel. I'm Congresswoman Terri Sewell. I'm the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. And let me welcome you to the 53rd Annual Legislative Conference. We are so excited about today's panel. As many of you know, I represent Alabama's 7th Congressional District, which includes the historic cities. I know. Includes the historic cities of Birmingham. Yay, who's in Birmingham? Montgomery. Tuscaloosa. Roll Tide. And my hometown of Selma, Alabama. And we thought it was befitting, since Alabama and this district is the home of the SEC, the SWAC, as well as the University of Alabama and Alabama State and Miles College. We know that in Alabama, the tradition of college athletics is rich and plentiful, and we're very, very happy. I see Alabama A&M in the house, so I got to say them too, once you start naming names. Well, I want to welcome you not only to this conference and to this session, but to a discussion that has been ongoing as we've seen the landscape of college athletics change. And I couldn't think of two more amazing people to have this conversation than our guest. We will talk for about 40 minutes, and maybe there's time for questions. And if there are, if you have a question, you have to fill out one of these nice index cards. And my staff, where's Chris? And hand it to Chris during the course of this conversation. And if we can get to it, we will get to it. Let me start by also saying a very hearty thank you to the University of Alabama staff and the wonderful folks who've helped me make this happen. Please give them a round of applause. It has been my honor and privilege to represent the University of Alabama for the last 7 terms, for 14 years, and I've always felt welcomed, and I am very proud of the fact that this district is home to Crimson Tide. We are also home to the SWAC, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and we are so excited to have, yes, give them a round of applause for that, and we're so excited that they're located in Birmingham as well as SEC. Our two guests, Coach Nick Saban has had an impressive 28-year career in coaching football, mostly at the University of Alabama. He's won 7 national titles, 9 SEC championships, and he's developed 52 first-round NFL draft picks, the most of any college football coach in history. Beyond his coaching achievements, Coach Saban and his wife, my namesake, Miss Terri, are philanthropic as well. They established the Nick's Kids Foundation, which has donated over $13 million to more than 150 charities. Dr. Charles McClelland is the 6th Commissioner of SWAC, the Southwestern Athletic Conference. He joined it in 2018. The Southwestern Athletic Conference is considered one of the premier HBCU conferences in the country and currently ranks among the elite in the nation in terms of HBCU's alumni playing professional sports teams. Commissioner McClelland oversees the 12-member HBCUs across 6 states. Additionally, he was appointed to the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Committee and subsequently became the committee chair for the 2023-2024 season, making history as the first representative from an HBCU league or institution to hold this position. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Coach Nick Saban and Commissioner Charles McClelland. Thank you, sir. It's so good to see you. Thank you. It's good to see you. So this is going to be a fun conversation for me because I get to be Oprah. Sorry. I get to be Oprah and interview some very, very, very important people on a very important topic. Listen, I think all of us who've gone through college know that the college experience is an amazing experience. It's also a time when so many of us developed our personalities and developed our interests and also set ourselves up for where we are now. The landscape for college sports has changed immensely. My first question goes to you, Coach Saban. Your coaching career, 28 years. I'm sure over that 28-year period, if you look at where you started and to where you finish, lots have changed. Can you set the stage for us as to what's going on now and what was going on then, the challenges, the opportunities that exist currently for college sports?
Well, I think, Terry makes a really good point about how much do we value our college experience. Everybody can think about that for themselves. And I think that's something that's very, very important. And since I've been a head coach in the last 28 years, things have changed dramatically. I think 28 years ago, we didn't have enough emphasis on academics. We didn't have the kind of graduations rates that we wanted. We did not, support student athletes like we needed to, whether it was health care, mental health, tutoring to make sure that they developed a career off the field. And I've seen great progress made, in those areas in the last, 25 years. And the current system that we have, which I'm the first to admit, our system through the years did not benefit the athletes like it needed to. And now we end up with name, image, and likeness, which is a great concept for players. And I'm all for players being compensated for what they do. But we have to have a system that manages that in an effective way. And I think that the current system is probably not sustainable because it's booster-induced name, image, and likeness, which is really become pay for play. And I don't think that's in the best interest of players who are constantly transferring because that's not enhancing their chances of developing a career off the field. Look, my whole goal as a coach for all these years was to help players be more successful in life because they were involved in the program. So their personal development, their academic development so that they could graduate and develop a career off the field. And we have 668 degrees in my 17 years at Alabama. 324 of those degrees were African-American degrees for players, lots of them first generation, going to college. So we really did support the players. 84% of our African-American players graduated. So we're...
It's a very impressive statistic.
Right, and we made a lot of progress in a lot of areas, and now with players being able to transfer, each time you transfer, you're minimizing your chances of really developing a career, graduating from school. And we have players that are transferring 3 or 4 times. So what I hate to see is 5 years from now, we're going to look around and say, because we didn't have a system that managed the circumstance, we're going to look back and say we have all these players who didn't graduate, which is what happened 28 years ago when I first started coaching. So hopefully we can see a way to put some guardrails, on what's happening right now, and that's going to be something that enhances the quality of life of student athletes, all student athletes at all universities and colleges, as well as gives them the best opportunity to create value for their future.
Very good. So, Commissioner, how has this changing landscape affected HBCUs and specifically those that are members of SWAC?
Well, it has definitely affected us in numerous ways. Coach is exactly right in his comments. And I'll start on the transfer piece. At our level, at the FCS level, we mimic what goes on at the FBS level. So at the FBS level, they are transferring because of dollars. We're transferring because of opportunities. But because the graduation rates at the HBCUs, especially within the athletic realm, but overall has traditionally been so low, now that that transfer portal is open, it's going to create a problem. You haven't seen the statistics yet because it's too early in the transfer process. So we look at it within a 6-year window. I can guarantee you that those numbers are going to go down. And ultimately, at our level, we're not playing to go professional in football and basketball. We're playing to gain an education so we can take care of our families. We're still majority first generation college, whether that's a student athlete or whether that's a regular student. So our athletic programs are extremely important to the overall mission of our institutions. So when you start talking about name, image, and likeness, we have an opportunity to participate in name, image, and likeness. Coach Prime at Jackson State kind of created this pathway and led the way. He left and went to Colorado, but our name, image, and likeness opportunities have continued to be there within the Southwestern Athletic Conference. One of the last ones was a basketball player at Grambling University in the NCAA tournament. He hit a shot to send it to overtime, instantaneously got a Buffalo Wild Wings name, image, and likeness for the overtime commercial that they have. So, it is extremely important for us to be on the same page. I've had the opportunity to go with Coach Saban today. We're with the Alabama contingency. I've worked with the SEC, and a lot of people say, why is the SWAC and the SEC and Alabama at the same place talking the same on the same sheet of music? And it comes down to one thing: our interests are exactly the same. They might have one reason, I might have another reason, but at the end of the day, it's about educating students and giving them an opportunity to be able to gain a foot forward in life. Very few of them are going to be able to go pro. Very few of them are going to be able to garner enough money from name, image, and likeness to make a significant impact. But if they all graduate, that's good for our community, that's good for our society. So it has definitely affected us.
Yes, absolutely. Growing up in Selma, my dad was a high school basketball coach. And he played athletics at Alabama State, was captain of the football team in 1961. Where's the Hornets in the house? And Dad always said to me that it wasn't fair that the schools were making money, that the conferences were making money, and that the student athletes were not getting their share of their talents, which produced all these resources. So what I'm hearing from both of you is that the new system, this new future of being able to, for the players to be able to share in their own talents, is something that we all agree on. It's about how we set up the system. And Coach Saban, you just said that the system being set up the way it is now, that is booster influenced NILs, is the problem. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that? And what do you want Congress to do about it?
Right. Well, I certainly think the players should be compensated for what they do, and I don't want anybody to think that's not the case. I think when you make it booster induced, that means people who support the school give the money that ends up paying the players. That's not really name, image, and likeness. That's a little different. But if we revenue share with the players, I think that's a much better model than having booster induced, because one school could have $20 million of booster money, another school could have $3 million of booster money, and they're playing each other, which is not creating a competitive balance for the student athletes. So we can revenue share, and I think it's really important when we revenue share to determine how can we continue to create opportunities for non-revenue sports, because this is very, very important that we continue to have other sports, Title IX, women's sports, and they continue to create opportunities for young people, and that we don't take all the money in revenue sharing and not have enough money to support the other students. So that's a tricky sort of combination of how we do that. But I still think, and I'm going to say it again, that name, image, and likeness should still be available to players. It should just not be booster induced. In other words, Bryce Young had the opportunity to do a Nissan commercial. He had the opportunity to do a Dr. Pepper commercial. They should still have the opportunity to do that and get paid for it. But even if we have to have, some agency that makes sure that these are market opportunities that are legit, and they're not being induced by boosters to pay for play, then I think that's great. And I think that was the spirit of name, image, and likeness to start with. But what we've created here, and this also is an issue for the transfer portal, because players are getting in the transfer portal and they don't get an opportunity. So they lose their scholarship when they get in, and they don't get an opportunity. So what's going to happen to those 40% of guys that don't get an opportunity? And then a lot of players are getting in because we don't have a system like the NFL Players Association that protects the players from third-party agents, whatever you want to call them. So we don't have that in college. So they're being influenced to get in the portal so they can make more money someplace else. And I think there's always reasons to transfer, and I'm not trying to be against transferring. But I don't think we should be putting players in jeopardy when they get in the transfer portal, and I don't think you should be getting in the transfer portal to make more money someplace else, because we should have a system that really creates an atmosphere where all players are being compensated fairly at all institutions. So I hope I answered the question effectively.
You did.
And if I could add on to that, what you're seeing at the FBS level will naturally trickle down to our level. Right? So don't think that this is just going to be an Alabama problem. This is going to trickle down to our level. It might take a couple of years, and it might be a couple of zeros less than what they're paying. But these issues are real, and they will affect us.
And right now, it's the Wild Wild West. Every state can decide what they want to do, every school. And we in Congress are a little dysfunctional, just a little bit. Are you sure that you think that we hold the keys to at least putting a system in place that will, as much as we can, level the playing field? And if so, what do you think that would look like?
Well, I would say I'm a member of the NCAA. The NCAA is made up of all of the membership, and we've been slightly dysfunctional as well. So
that's true.
That's led to us being at this, particular juncture. But it's going to take a collaborative effort from us and the legislature to be able to get a handle on all of this. One of the major issues that we have been, looking at is this sense of employment. So the House settlement has come down. They're going to have to maneuver their way through the House settlement, but we're still going to have this employment issue that we're going to have to deal with. There's been some NLRB hearings, and it seems as if, it's going to side with labor. I self-admitted was not a great basketball player. I wanted to play collegiate basketball. I went to Prairie View A&M University to play basketball. When I got to Prairie View A&M University, they immediately canceled their athletics program because of funding, right? Mm. We brought it back as a non-scholarship sport. Why did we bring it back? We lost half of our students, which meant that we lost half of our formula funding. Mm. The administration found out very quickly that athletics is strategically important to educating all students, not just student athletes. So if you know anything about Prairie View, from 1989 to 1996, we lost 83 football games. We still hold the record, Coach. That's probably will never be broken. But ultimately what happened was that the university almost closed because of this athletics program. So let's fast forward to now. At the FCS level, financial aid is counted as a part of our scholarship. So if you get a Pell Grant, a SEOG, and if you're recruited and you get an engineering scholarship, that's counted as part of your scholarship. And if they're now employees, they're going to have to pay payroll taxes on money that they qualify for because they are social economic disadvantaged students coming in. And then when you look at how we fund our athletic programs, and this is not just HBCUs, this is quite a few of the programs, even at the FBS level, we get institutional transfers. So we're taking money from housing, we're taking money from dining, and we're using those dollars to help fund our athletic programs. Well, how will the university be able to pay taxes on those scholarships as well? Because they're going to have to pay matching taxes. Ultimately, what's going to happen is programs are going to start to go away. And when those programs and those opportunities go away, enrollment is going to go down. And the HBCUs were created to serve the historically underserved. And in this new DEI environment, where are we going to go? They're going to go to HBCUs. So this is not just an athletic issue. Yes. This is a societal issue.
And an educational issue.
An educational issue.
So, Coach Saban, on the whole issue of whether or not student athletes should be employees, where do you come out on that, and what are your thoughts about it?
I agree with Charles that even at the University of Alabama, where we make a tremendous investment in players having a chance to be more successful in life, whether it's healthcare, mental health, tutoring, over $100,000 per student. Well, if you have to pay tax on all those benefits, that's going to minimize the benefit for the player. And if we have to pay tax on it, that's going to rise up the cost of how many other programs can we really support. So I do not think the players should be employees, but I do think the players should benefit, as I said before, from what we're able to do with revenue sharing.
You know, as a lawmaker, I would not want the labor employment regime to be the regime that actually wins out. At the end of the day, for me, it should be about college athletes, with the emphasis on college athletes. Otherwise, they might as well already go to the NFL or NBA. The reason why they're at that level is because they're there to be educated. Now, I also think that the players have to have a critical role in this new system. They should have an equal seat at the table. After all, the league is, the conferences are huge, the schools are huge, the coaches are, and they're the ones who are, their well-being is the one that's at stake. So I agree that we may not need an employer regime, but we do need an effort to give the players a say in this system.
I don't think there's any question about it. I totally agree. But at the same time, the concept and spirit of student athlete, as I said before, how did you value your college experience? And the more we can keep that, because I think, college athletics, and I see it bigger now, and everybody needs to understand, I'm not trying to win a game here. I'm not a coach anymore. I'm on game day with McAfee. So this is strictly for the best interest of college athletics at all levels and for all sports. So how this brings communities together. I mean, the rules are clearly defined. The goal is same. And people are together in spirit. I don't care if they're rich, poor, black, white. Jesse Jackson said one time when I was a coach at LSU, he said, your stadium on a Saturday night is closer to the kingdom of God than my church. I said, Jesse, you could smell the bourbon on the 50-yard line. And he said the very thing. He said, everybody's together in spirit, the rules are clearly defined, and everybody has the same goal. He said, I can't get that in my church. So that's the importance of college athletics, to our communities and to the spirit of the game. And I think that's very important that integrity is kept intact.
Yes.
And I think the college game is a beautiful thing. It is unique. And it brings everyone together. And I'm a little afraid of going to a model to where my quarterback or my son or your son or daughter have a bad game and the coach comes in and say, you're fired, right? And I think what's the beauty of what we've been able to put together is not just from an educational standpoint, but from the amateurism standpoint, that we are playing for the purity of intercollegiate athletics. Being on the basketball committee along with Greg Byrne, AD at Alabama, we've seen just the purity of the joy of going out at a basketball game, playing in front of 75,000 people. You know, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. They're not out there trying to play for dollars, although that is supposed to come and it will come. They're playing for the purity of the game. And I think it would be a shame for us to say you're fired because you missed a jump shot.
Well, one of the things that you also...
one other thing I wanted to make clear here. So Charles said he's on the basketball committee, right? So if your team doesn't get in a tournament, he's the guy to call.
Believe me, don't say that, Coach. All of the Big East.
And his number is... I'm just kidding.
All of the Big East and all of the Auburn fans have already sent enough hate mail.
Well, one of the things that the commissioner mentioned was the terms of the NCAA House settlement. And according to the New York Times, if reached, the agreement would establish a $2.8 billion in retroactive damages payments for former collegiates dating back to 2016. You talked a little bit, Commissioner, about how this will affect HBCUs and smaller universities, but how might this revenue sharing be beneficial as well? I mean, I get that nobody wants to pay. Schools and colleges have probably already spent money, but at the end of the day, it is a lawsuit, it is a settlement, and someone needs to pay. But how it affects non-revenue sharing sports, how does it affect Title IX and women's sports? Be interesting to know your take on that.
Sure, I think it affects us in both ways. Well, initially, from a Southwestern Athletic Conference standpoint, we are on the hook of about $30 million of that settlement. And the settlement is for FBS football players in Division I at the high major basketball. But the fact that we're a part of the NCAA and the NCAA is a part of the settlement, we have to pay our fair share. And I know you're seeing a lot of national publicity about the smaller conferences. We're not necessarily happy with the settlement. We were not either, but we understood that in our position within the NCAA, our value comes from being Division I in the NCAA. And we had to invest in the settlement to keep this structure together, because I would much rather pay $30 million than lose $100 million. So from an HBCU's perspective, we are locked in step with the settlement because, again, it creates a bigger platform and a bigger opportunity for us to do what we're here to do, and that is to educate students, not just student athletes, but educate students. So we look at it as an investment, a future investment. We're going to have to make some changes, but we've survived with less than for 150 years, so we'll be able to adjust.
Yep. And for the bigger schools, SEC schools, how will it affect, non-revenue generating sports? I mean, obviously, it would take a big chunk of the resources.
Well, but I think that revenue sharing is the way to go. I think it's a better managed system. I think, how do you distribute the money? I think that becomes a bigger issue, because if we try to pay all student athletes, revenue and non-revenue sports, male and female alike, the same amount, then we're going to run out of money. So therefore, we're going to lose a lot of participation and a lot of opportunities in a lot of sports. So some kind of way we got to come up with, I think revenue sharing is good, but how do we share the revenue? Yeah. With revenue sports versus non-revenue sports. And I think it's important, but I think these non-revenue Olympic sports are so important. I think in the last Olympics, not this one, but 85% of the people who represented the United States in the Olympics were developed in college, whether it was track and field, swimming, gymnastics, no matter what. So that's really important to the opportunities that are created, that these folks have a chance to compete at a very high level, on an international level as well. So, but I think that's the key to the drill. Revenue sharing is the way to go, but how do we distribute the money? And we need protection from litigation so that there's not lawsuits every time we try to implement these things.
But in all fairness, we wouldn't have gotten here had there not been lawsuits. I get it. I get that.
I'm with you 100%. It was unfair.
The old system was unfair.
A lawsuit got us to where we are right now. Now we don't have a manageable system moving forward, so we got to bring the guardrails in to be able to make it happen.
Yeah. What would you like Congress to see Congress do? And what is the danger of this sort of 50-state and territory solution that is currently happening?
Well, there are three priorities. I think very clearly Title IX is going to be significant in all of this, and the opportunities for women's sports, right, is critically important.
Absolutely.
And if we don't do this thing correctly, we're going to lose Olympic sports and women's sports. So we want to make sure that we have some solid direction on that as well. Employment is key. I think employment will break the system to where it won't be repairable. You will not be able to enjoy college sports as you are able to enjoy it now. And we're talking about some level of protection. So as we move forward, and as Congress can codify all of this, instead of it being 50 different sets of rules, one rule, and to say we now have some protection to where we're not going to continue to get sued. Let's work together to create a sustainable model. And I've said this all the time. We can do both things at the same time. We can create what was perceived to be the start of this problem, and that was paying those athletes at the highest level, but also not harm the other 90% of the student athletes in America trying to solve that 5 to 10% problem.
And almost all of the bills in Congress that are going, that are being promulgated or folks are filing, set up some sort of commission to sort of help do this. And is the NCAA just so irreparable that it can't govern whatever new system there is? And must we set up a commission to do that? I guess I'm saying this because of the 10 bills that are in Congress, almost all of them have some sort of regulatory, and I understand from you that that's important because we want to make sure that all these NIL deals are real deals and are not, harming the students.
Well, I do think that the NCAA, even though their inflexibility in making changes through the years have created some of the problems that we're dealing with today, and the solutions that we've created, but I also think they have a vested interest in what's happening, whether it's March Madness, whether it's NCAA football, whether it's enforcement of competitive rules that try to level the playing field. So I would be in favor of, the NCAA continuing to make sure that things are being done and carried out like you in Congress, feel they should be.
Yeah. Well, I just think that adding another layer is a lot. But look, I think that what I hope your takeaway is that we can't solve the problem without you all at the table helping us. I mean, the reality is that as lawmakers, we have our various interests and our various fields, and it almost never is, precisely that which we are addressing. So we're going to need your help. How do you feel about caps on the NIL?
Well, I think we're open, and I think your point is very to the point. I said earlier that we are the NCAA, so the majority of these rules, if not all of these rules, we voted them in, right? So we have an NCAA legislative process. So all of the lawsuits that have come and all of the things that we're trying to protect, we voted them in. And I think the lawsuits have pushed us to a point to where we're now in a zone of uncomfortableness, which has ultimately helped us go where we need to go. So when you start talking about caps, there is a lot of good conversation about why they should be in place. I think, again, it's going to take both parties at the table to determine what's going to be best. And I do think that we now have the wherewithal to be able to see past, the forest for the trees and do what's right to keep this enterprise. The NCAA generates about $1.2 billion, but the majority of that money goes back to the membership. A lot of people don't know this. It wasn't that well publicized, or maybe it was and people didn't want to hear it. But the NCAA is now paying for health insurance for our student athletes post graduation. Right? it's now mandated that if you come back, institutions, whether you're at the Power 5 level or at our level, must create scholarship opportunities for student athletes to come back and graduate, right? So I think it's pushed us along, but we're going to have to sit at the table and create these issues, or at least solve these issues in a creative way, but it has to be a collaborative effort.
Absolutely.
We actually have had 15 players that went out early for the draft that have come back to Alabama and graduated. We paid for it. They certainly could afford it. I mean, Amari Cooper, a lot of guys that you hear of that are star players in the NFL, because we emphasize the importance of education and how important it is to develop a career for when you can't play anymore. And I think all these things are really, really important. We have a legacy fund, which we actually donate to so that we can take advantage of creating opportunities for players when they do graduate and enhance that they come back and graduate if they didn't. And this has been very successful, and whether it's NFLPA has opportunity things that they do for players. We have a First and 10 Club that's an alumni organization that tries to enhance opportunities for guys when they graduate. So all these things, I think, are really important in paying back players for representing our schools, not just financially what they get when they do it, which I'm all for, but also what we do for them to pay them back and making sure they get a degree and helping them launch their career and using the resources that we have to help them do that.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you think about it, what is it, 1% of the players across all sports really get these big, huge deals for NIL, and yet all of us benefit when we have college sports and the array of college sports. Can you talk a little bit about, I know that in Alabama, I would think it's the football program and maybe the basketball program that generates the bulk of the revenue, and yet we have a stellar program in gymnastics and we have amazing swimmers. And so how will this changing landscape affect these non-revenue generating sports?
Well, I think the whole goal would be that it doesn't. But I think everybody needs to understand, if you're in business and you have a part of your business that is not generating revenue or not making you money, all right, I own car dealerships. So let's just say the service department's doing a poor job and they're losing money. We're still going to sell cars, but eventually we're going to shut down the service department because they're costing us money. Well, we cannot let that happen in college athletics.
Agreed.
And we have to have a system, a manageable system that does not allow that to happen. And I think the best way to do that is we revenue share with players in revenue sports. And we share to some degree, maybe a lesser degree, with other sports so that we can afford to pay all the participants at some level to make their quality of life better. But it can't be at the same level because we're going to have to eliminate sports if we do that, just like we got to eliminate a department in our business that's not making money. Anybody would do that. But we cannot do that in athletics because we'll be eliminating so many opportunities for young people to have a chance to be successful in life.
Mm-hmm. What do you have to add to that?
Not much. I think Coach summed it up pretty good.
I know this is a very weighty topic, and I want to give us some a little levity. Both of you have been doing in college sports for the bulk of your career and come from it different perspectives. But yet I'm sure that both of you have wonderful high points and some low points in that career, and would love to just know what advice you would give to young folks that are in the audience. I think everybody should know that the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, of which I am chair, our main thing is a leadership institute, and it is to help young folks prepare for life by interning on the Hill, interning in the White House, interning in the C-suites. And so we do have a number of our students in the audience, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are about your advice to young folks who want a career in college athletics at whatever level.
I would first all start by saying don't give up on your dream. There's going to be a lot of obstacles that are out there. The second thing I would say is don't let anyone else determine your net worth. You determine your own net worth. In this world of social media, you can get just about what you want to get. I say stay positive, stay focused, because it's going to be your self-determination and the self-drive that's ultimately going to get you there. And the third thing I would say is that we all fail. You need to learn from your failures. There's nothing wrong with losing. There's nothing wrong with failure if you learn from those failures. I've had some people to say, hey, that was probably the most craziest, stupidest thing that you've said, Charles. And I would go back and say, yes, I didn't like what I said either. But you have to be able to have that self-reflection to say, I made a mistake or I did something wrong, let me self-correct. And if you self-correct and determine your own value, I think you will be successful in anything that you want to do.
Very good.
Great.
All right. So, Coach, I want to also ask you, what was the highest point in your career? Like, what do you consider to be the most pivotal point in your career, and what advice would you give to our young folks?
Well, to be honest,
I want you to.
Going to graduation was just as important as going to pick up the trophy for winning an NCAA championship. And the self-gratification that you get from seeing players have a chance to be more successful in life. Like, to Charles's point, every player that came to Alabama, the first thing I would do is say, what do you want to accomplish here? And the guy would say, I want to graduate and I want to play in the NFL. My second question would be, do you know what that entails? And most of the time they couldn't answer that one. In other words, what do you have to do? What is the process of what you have to do to be able to accomplish these two goals that you have? This is what you need to do to graduate from college. This is what you need to do to be the best player you can be, so that you have an opportunity maybe to play in the NFL someday. And then I would periodically ask them, are you satisfied with the progress that you're making? And if the guy said yes, I would say why? And he would give me the reasons. I go to class every day, I'm using my tutor, whatever. So they learn how to self-assess. Mm-hmm. And if the guy said, no, I'm not pleased, I'd say why? And he'd say, because I missed too much class, or I don't use my tutor, or I'm not in shape, or I don't understand the offense, or whatever it is. So again, they're learning how to self-assess. But the most important piece of it, and the hardest thing for any of us to execute, is do we have the discipline to execute every day? There's something I know I'm supposed to do that I don't really want to do. Can you make yourself do it? There's something I shouldn't do, but I want to do it. Can you keep yourself from it? To make the choices and decisions that we have to make to be able to stay on the path of accomplishing the goals that we have. I think instilling those kinds of values in players is what my dad was always about when he was a coach, and it was what I was always about as a coach. Coaching is teaching. Teaching is ability to inspire learning. And to be able to inspire these players to do the things they needed to do to be successful was the most important thing. And hey, I'm proud of the fact that we have the most guys playing in the NFL. We have 61 guys on NFL rosters. They signed for $1.1 billion in the last year. I'm proud of all that. I'm proud of all the championships that we won. But I'm also proud of the fact that there was a whole bunch of other guys, probably about 95% of them, that had to have success in life some other kind of way, and that we impacted them to do that.
Yep. Well, that's good advice. I know that we've gotten a couple of questions, and if you present them. So, Charles, I wanted to know from you, what does a commissioner do every day?
Try to solve a lot of other people's problems.
I have some brothers that want to be commissioner. I'm like, what does a commissioner of a conference really do?
Well, first of all, I have 12 bosses, 12 presidents. So that's a full-time job trying to make sure that all 12 presidents are on the same page. But putting a league together and keeping a league together in this current environment is probably one of the most challenging things that we have to do. There's a lot of movement. I saw in the paper today that the Pac-2 now, the possibly Pac-8, are going after some Mountain West conferences, schools. That is a day-to-day, opportunity for you as a commissioner to make sure that you have the resources to keep your league together. television contracts, championships, and that's probably the most important thing that we do, the student-athlete experience. That's critically important, and the revenue generation that you have to do from a conference office to be able to get those dollars back to the member institutions, to be able to allow them to get to where they need to be from a competitive standpoint is always critical. But at the end of the day, it's always about creating these systems to recruit quality students and getting those students graduated.
Well, we're very proud of you, so thank you. So the first question, a really good one for both of you. Where do you see the future of college sports in regards to financial literacy and the career development for the student athlete, especially in this new era of NIL?
Well, for years now, we've had personal development programs where we had 20 speakers a year. You know, they would come in and talk to our players. Financial literacy was a part of that. Sometimes it was motivation. What does it take to be successful? Sometimes it was Kobe Bryant coming in and spending a day with the players on, you know, how do you be the best version of yourself? How do you challenge yourself to be the best that you can be? So we've done as much as we can to educate players outside of the realm of just playing the game of football. Like, what do you have to understand from a personal standpoint to have a chance to be successful and make choices and decisions that will help you be successful in your future?
Good.
And I think we'll have to do more as well. In the Southwestern Athletic Conference, we've partnered with Chase Bank to come in and do a lot of financial literacy. And it's not just the name, image, and likeness now. It's when you see the credit card applications at the front of the window when you're going to pay your fees, don't fill out 4 of them, because that's going to negatively impact your credit. And you would be surprised at the amount of students and student athletes that don't understand how that entire process works. But when you throw on top of that, you're getting ready to get paid through name, image, and likeness, and that you're going to have to pay federal tax and you're going to have to pay state tax. And some instances, you're going to have to pay city tax, that you have to take a portion of that. It's our responsibility to make sure that our membership understands and be able to go forward with that financial piece.
Well, this is a question specifically for you. How can HBCUs compete in the NIL era? And
great question.
Yeah.
Great question. And I think you might be surprised of our answer. For the first time in, at least my opinion, in the history of the NCAA, we're actually in the game now, because the rules have allowed us now to be a part of name, image, and likeness, to be a part of us creating these opportunities for our student athletes. Before, we really did not have that platform. Mm-hmm. So I think we understand who we are and where we are. So from an HBCU's perspective, we're kind of insulated in a lot of what goes on. We have very large crowds. The SWAC and the MEAC participate in the Celebration Bowl. We're the only 2 FCS conferences that do that. We have a $1.2 million payout for the Celebration Bowl. When we play each other on campus, if we sell those stadiums out at 8 of our 12 stadiums, you're talking about $1 million or more. So we're trying to keep that economic driver within our community. So to be able to say we're on national TV now, every week, that you can compete for a championship, you can compete for a national championship, and oh, by the way, you can get name, image, and likeness, I think it puts us in a much stronger position than what we were prior to name, image, and likeness.
Good. Coach Saban, this is a question about your post-coaching career. What have you learned in the time on the college game day set? What new music have you heard and listened to? That's my added. And what sort of opportunities do you think will be generated for players in broadcasting?
Wow.
Are you enjoying yourself?
First of all, I do enjoy college game day. The odd couple between me and McAfee is well recognized. But it does keep me involved in the game, and I enjoy that because I love college athletics. I love college players. I love the relationships, and I miss that very much by not coaching. But the fact that I can still be involved in the game and certainly have, I hope, some impact on the future of what college football becomes, what college athletics becomes, is, very, very important, to me. And I love the game, and I want to be a part of the game, and this has given me a great opportunity to do that, and hopefully we can have some influence on where the future, what the future holds for college athletics.
Yep. Well, we miss seeing you on the field. I'm sure you miss being on the field. But what skill set have you acquired now that you're on the other side and you're doing the game day?
Well, the biggest thing is the guy talking in your ear telling you when you can talk and when you can't. I never had that problem before.
That's a good one.
No, anyway, and I think there's a lot of players that I know. Malachi Moore, for example, has talked to me several times, one of the players at Alabama right now, about getting into broadcasting. What can he do to do it? What can you tell me about it that might help me be able to do it? And you see, quite a few athletes, whether they're on ESPN or Fox or whatever, that Mark Ingram, for example, is on Fox now. So I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish with players in terms of how they can articulate. And I think their involvement with the press when they're players and being somebody that has significant opportunity to express themselves is, really important to their development. So, and I think, again, college athletics gives players the opportunity to do that. And that's something that I hope we can continue to enhance in the future. So, but I think we all have a responsibility and obligation to, like we mentioned, Nick's kids earlier. We're trying to help the quality of people's life. Yep. All right, but we've also donated like $1.5 million to first-generation scholarships at Alabama and at Stillman, College. We've done something to have a minority administrator get a paid internship for the last 4 years at University of Alabama. So, whatever any of us can do to create opportunities for young people is important for our future. And I think we should all think about that a little bit. And, like I said at the ESPYs, it's not how do you do today, it's who did you help today. And I think that we all need to think about that a little bit.
That's great. Well, I just want to say in closing, this is just the first step. I think that we have to have an open dialogue, and I know that the SEC and the coaches and the conferences have come to the Hill for multiple years now. I think that I'd like to say that I think that if we can figure out the champions on the Senate side, the champions on the House side, you've met with the speaker, you've met with the leader. I think that the importance of coming up with a system, and a system that is not about parity, but is about equal opportunity, is one that I think all of us could benefit from. And as you said, we all have a role to play. And I think that the lawmakers, in listening to you today and in meeting with you all today, really have a lot to take back, which is great. We're still going to need you all. We're still going to need you all. And obviously, the opinion of our constituency matters as well. This is a really important topic for colleges generally, not just for college athletics. It is going to be an ongoing topic, and I can't tell you how excited I am and how grateful I am for both of you being here today at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, and they deserve a round of applause. And before we go, I don't know if you have any closing words, but I just want you to know that I'm very grateful to represent Alabama's 7th District every year and here in Congress. And it's a huge responsibility that I don't take lightly. And I look forward to working with you all in trying to make sure that we keep what's great about our system and make it better.
Okay, can you coach me up on one thing?
Uh-oh.
That's how to make it happen, because this is my 4th trip here.
I know.
And we haven't made a first down yet.
Well, Coach, I I officially count this as the first down. I think
good.
that I think that you would agree that you had a really broad range of folks that you met with today that can really make this happen. And do know that we are all just very grateful that you all do what you do each and every day. And I'm grateful to all of you for being here and supporting the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. So thank you all. Thank you.
We appreciate you more than you know. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tell Miss Terry I said hello.
C-SPAN's Washington Journal, a live forum involving you to